everyone, welcome back to But Why the Podcast, and today we are getting super Halloween-y. As always, I'm your host, Kate. I'm here with Adrian.
Hey, how's it going?
And Matt.
Hello.
And our resident spooky boy, Alex.
It's me, I'm Halloween-y.
And for those of you who don't know, Alex has been kind of an unofficial co-host for this entire month of spookiness. So if you haven't listened to him yet, go back and listen to all of our delightful horror episodes. And yeah, Alex, why are you here?
I'm here because I like spooky stuff, and I write about it / serve as the assignment editor for Friday.com, which is a genre and horror news and review site.
Super, super spooky.
So you know what I want to know?
No?
What, Matt?
Never mind. Apparently not.
Yeah, and today we're doing a really, really, freeform episode because we're just talking about our favorite Halloween movies. So to break it down for everybody on this podcast and everybody listening at home, a Halloween movie doesn't necessarily have to be a horror movie, and it doesn't necessarily have to happen on Halloween. It's just a movie that you enjoy watching on this sacred of holidays.
Is this like the same thing where people say that Die Hard is the best Christmas movie because it happens during Christmas time?
I mean,
I was about to say that.
If you can find a movie that fits that category, yeah.
Oh, awesome.
So how would The Nightmare Before Christmas work then?
That is a Christmas movie.
It's-
That is a Christmas movie because Jack Skellington wants nothing to do with Halloween. So that is a Christmas movie.
It is a Christmas movie with a Halloween aesthetic.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
United Front, Alex.
Is that why you added all of the soundtrack to your Halloween list?
Ooh.
I added the Halloweentown pieces of it, yes. As sung by Marilyn Manson and Korn.
Yeah, it's like saying that Les Miserables is a musical about how great the French military is because they let Javert sing.
Pretty much.
Like,
That
it's
went way
not.
over
It's
Adrian,
about
okay.
it's about revolution, and it's about, pushing back. It's not about Javert.
Yeah, because the whole I am firmly in the camp that The Nightmare Before Christmas is not a Halloween movie, also because it has Christmas in the title, but just because a good Halloween movie can't have your protagonist's entire story being running away from Halloween.
I don't know. The Santa Claus did that.
Oh yeah, that's fair.
But I will say I agree with you. I think realistically, just live your best life and watch it at Halloween and at Christmas. I think there's nothing wrong with it. I'm not gonna Halloween shame someone.
I will.
Sure. No, seriously, it does have a lot of spooky moments. Oogie Boogie is still one of the spookiest.
Oh yeah,
creations
creepy
in all of
villain.
Claymation. So yeah, that's fine. You live your best life. Just know that it's not a Halloween movie.
Yes. Oh yeah, I'm not gonna go back.
Do
on
it.
that part.
Just know that you're wrong in Kate's eyes.
I mean, people
But
watch Christmas
I will
movies all the
watch it.
time.
Oh yeah. Also, Krampus is the best Christmas movie, but that's for another episode.
I do love Krampus.
We've already talked about Krampus multiple times, so we'll be fine.
Okay.
I tried anytime we do a December episode, I'm just talking about Krampus.
It's fun. They did a Krampus episode of American Dad.
That is one of the best episodes ever.
Yeah. Such a good musical number.
Mm-hmm.
So good.
But to segue, so the director of Krampus, Michael Dougherty, who also directed Godzilla King of Monsters, which deserves way better than what Rotten Tomatoes has given it, directed we can do top 3, so we're not here forever, but
Okay.
my top Halloween movie, which is Trick or Treat.
That is a really good one. I like that he was trying to give Halloween its own mascot since there really isn't one yet. And
No, little Sam. I have little lights of him on my stairs.
and that his what's his whole thing is, it's just if you don't uphold the spirit of Halloween, Sam's gonna come get you.
Exactly. So if you at home have not watched Trick or Treat, or I'm assuming Matt and Adrian haven't watched it.
I Googled it, I saw the cover, and noped out of there. So
Okay.
it's a big nope for me.
You should know at some point Sam does stab somebody with a sharpened lollipop.
Yes,
Intrigued.
and he also has a razor blade hidden in a Snickers bar.
Okay. All
You
right.
remember that when he's in the house. And
He's
it's,
the one
covered
person to
in
ever
do
birds,
that.
and a box cutter, not a razor blade, box cutter, but it's chocolate covered.
It's excellent. But yeah,
It's
the whole
so
idea
good.
was to give people a Halloween mascot, kind of like Santa or the Easter Bunny or whatever.
And if you haven't watched it, it is an anthology film, which means that it covers multiple stories over the course of one film. And the way it does that is each piece of it focuses on a different kind of Halloween tradition. So, trick or treating, putting up jack o' lanterns, wearing costumes, and it imbues it with the spirit of all things horror. There are werewolves, there are creepy old people, there are murderous children, and then my favorite scene is when the kids take the elevator down to the quarry and get assaulted by little like 1930s kids in costumes. 'Cause
Yes.
that's hella scary on
I'm
its
so confused about this movie.
own. Why?
It just jumps all over town.
It sounds like a lot of stuff's going on in that movie.
Yeah, it is because I mean it's a lot of different stories, but like what the through line with it and the way anthologies work is you have multiple stories, but you have one thread that keeps it all together, and that thread that keeps it together is Sam, which is the mascot that Alex mentioned. And what Sam does is essentially like these are people who have dishonored Halloween in some way. So in the cold open of the film, you have a woman she stomps out the jack-o'-lanterns. The entire Halloween lore behind jack-o'-lanterns is that you light them to keep evil away and you keep spirits away that way. And so she stomps them out, therefore stomping out the Halloween spirit, and then he kills her.
Gotcha.
So it kind of follows that tone. It also deals with the idea about people putting objects in candy that kids should not eat, as well as kids kind of growing up and going into their own and kind of like starting to lose what it's like to trick or treat and stuff like that. But it's something that's extremely Halloweeny, and it's my favorite film just because there are so many stories to it. And
Yeah.
it's just all about keeping that spooky spirit.
It's a really good one. I'll go next because going off of that with the anthology thing, not a movie, but one of my favorite things to do around Halloween is to watch the old Simpsons Treehouse of Horror episodes.
Yeah.
It's this like horror light that I got into as a kid of just like every year watching whatever the newest batch of shorts that they put together was, and they've definitely gone downhill as the years go on. I just earlier today watched this season's, which was episode 666, and they didn't do anything with that, and I was so disappointed.
How many are those? Are there?
How many of those? It's the 30th.
So they only do, because I couldn't remember if they only did one per year, or if they did like you said, like
They do one a year, but they didn't do one the first season.
Okay.
But yeah, so just like some recommended
Oh god,
segments.
it just hit me that The Simpsons have been going on for 31 years.
Yep.
Yes.
In the very first one, there is an adaptation of Edgar Allan Poe's The Raven that, as they were like writing it and animating it, Matt Groening was kind of convinced that everyone was going to think that it was just like pretentious garbage and they shouldn't be doing it. And then it was like the most highly rated part of that episode when critics started reviewing it. And it is pretty much what it sounds like. It is just the Raven being acted out by Homer. Like complete with like the original wording. I think there's a couple verses removed, but it's the Raven. There's also Clown Without Pity and Treehouse of Horror 3, which is a throwback to a Twilight Zone episode where there's the talking Tina doll that's trying to kill the dad. They've done The Shining. They've done... they did a really good one that I think was maybe original. That it was that the elementary school was giving students detention and then killing them and grinding them up and feeding them to the students.
I saw that one. I've actually seen that one.
Yeah, it's great. They
I mean,
did.
that sounds original, but like how much of that is like Sweeney Todd and
Oh yeah, for sure.
meat pies instead of people pies.
But yeah, they've just done like a bunch of really creative ones, and again, like they've gone downhill. I'm gonna plug myself a little bit here because a few years ago I watched every single episode of Treehouse of Horror in like the first week or two of October, and then compiled like my favorite segments from all, at the time, I think 27 episodes that were out.
Oh, that's awesome.
But yeah, it's just a really fun thing. It's lighthearted. If you're not super into horror but want to watch something Halloween themed, it's a great activity. And yeah, that's gonna be my recommendation.
I mean, technically, you got about like
Go, Matt.
I was gonna say, technically at this point, you have about 15 hours worth of content there. so you have plenty of binging to do.
Yeah.
Is it 15 hours? Oh,
I mean,
yeah,
it's
it is 15 hours.
30-minute episodes. I guess they're technically 22 minutes, which you could probably do that math, but still.
Yeah, I do know that I remember watching them when I was little, and then I remember falling off of it and then coming back on just for the Guillermo del Toro episode
Mm.
where Mr. Burns is the pale guy.
Yes, that one was. I
It's
mean,
real freaky.
yeah, just design wise, that was upsetting.
Yeah. Have you guys seen Treehouse of Horror?
I've seen some of them. I think we talked about it on. I can't think of the episodes off the top of my head, but we talked at length about this on our Simpsons episode actually when Alex came on.
Oh yeah, we did.
Right?
I remember that.
Yeah. I like them. I think they're good. I think they're really good. I love parody stuff, so anything that gives me parody, even if it's like horror stuff, I think is pretty good.
Matt?
I've seen a few of them. Obviously, we mentioned. I have seen obviously the meat pie one in the elementary. I mean, I haven't seen a lot. 30 of them. I've seen maybe like 5, if that.
Yeah, I mean, I saw a lot like in the early years, right? Like when they're doing, yeah.
Back when I actually had like cable TV. Because I mean,
That's the
now.
weird thing when you think about it is like at the episode count, technically that is 2 seasons worth of content.
Yeah, that's a lot.
Basically.
Well, that's what I said. Like,
if
you
I
have
could get a
50
box set, I'd buy it.
Just of the Treehouse of Horror.
Oh yeah. Like when the show is over, if Disney wants to put out, or Disney
Oh,
Fox or
gosh.
whoever it is at this point, if they want to put out a box set of here's every Treehouse of Horror episode in one volume, I will buy that.
So, how much does that hurt to say when Disney puts out their box set of The Simpsons?
Oh, here's the thing. I'm worried now that Disney isn't going to let The Simpsons die. And there is a small chance that they will, the same way that they kind of resurrected Marvel, who was on the brink, that they will do something with The Simpsons to make it great. But I don't know that that'll actually happen.
But isn't the biggest problem with The Simpsons that all the original people left?
That was going to be a problem. I mean, a lot the best writers are gone at this point, like that dream team from the 90s, but the voice actors are all still on at least for a few more seasons.
Okay. Adrian, what's your favorite Halloween-y content?
So I've been trying to figure out, and I have some options here, where 4 episodes in and multiple episodes into horror. So I don't really watch a lot of horror. So just consequently, I don't watch a lot of Halloween movies. Does it have to be a movie centered on Halloween, or can there be a Halloween scene in it that is?
It'd be like spooky.
Are you asking if Mean Girls counts?
Alex, get out of my head. Get out of my head, Alex. Because that's literally what I'm looking at right now. Because
I'll allow it.
Because that
I'm fine
sequence
with
is
that.
like one of the funniest parts of the entire movie. You got
It
your
is really,
cousins,
really
and then
good.
you got your cousins, your first cousins, and then your second. Yeah. That's. I'd have to go with that one. I think as just because that Halloween scene is, for me, the funniest part of the entire movie, like start to finish. Like, you get so much in that whole thing, and it's good. I like that. I like that movie.
My
And that
favorite part is just the boombox to the face, but I think the
Yeah.
Halloween scene is also very good.
She's like, I'm a
The
mouse.
Halloween scene
Duh.
resonates me as somebody who is never the sexy version of something and was just the zombie bride.
Yeah,
So
she's just so
I
excited.
feel
and it
that
was just
really deep in my soul.
Yeah. No, I get that. Where it's like, oh, it's Halloween. Like, let's all put on costumes. And it's like, I mean, like, you saw my costume from last year where Kelsey and I were just, like, covered in fake blood. And it was like, this is fun. This is Halloween. Like, I don't want anything else.
Yeah, I gotta put on lingerie and put on mouse ears. That's what you're supposed to do.
Can't forget
Yeah.
the tail.
Yeah, and the tail. Yeah. Yeah. That's mine. Not a lot of cultural significance there, but I just really like that whole sequence in that movie.
Matt?
My favorite Halloween movie is Vodka. But apparently that's not a movie. so
That's
that
the
doesn't
Russian
count.
slasher, right?
Yeah. I don't really watch Halloween movies. Obviously, I've seen some of these horror movies we talk about and everything else, but I just don't sit around and watch Halloween movies. I don't do anything. The only movie that really comes to mind that I can say that I probably watched in October, and I guess it of any significance would be Saw. Because at least the first one, because I believe it released in October, because I know that was a theme for about the first few years before they went downhill.
Something about that feels like a very Matt choice for Halloween horror.
I love the first Saw movie. I think it's amazing.
Yeah, I mean, in your defense, that established the entire torture porn subgenre.
As a mainstream phenomenon, yeah, absolutely.
Theatrically, yeah.
It's well, and I think that's the thing is that people forget that, and we actually just talked about a similar phenomenon on Game Boys when we did a horror episode. But like the first one is a legitimately solid film, and then it just kind of kept going. And then,
were you talking about Resident Evil?
Oh no, we specifically were talking about like Friday the 13th and how it starts off as like the franchise is a satire of Reagan era conservatism and all that, and then it just sort of snowballs into
Jason X.
Yeah, and then it's eventually you're on a spaceship and like Titanium Jason is stabbing people, and it's like, okay, this got away from you at some point.
To be fair, Jason X and Titanium Jason has the best kill of the entire franchise,
Which is
the liquid nitrogen kill.
Yeah,
He
I even know
grabs
that
the
one.
Yeah.
head,
Well,
smashes it into the liquid nitrogen, and then smashes the head on the table, and it crumbles.
I mean, because although I guess never mind, that's I think a deleted scene, but the one where Jason like puts the guy in the sleeping bag and slams him into a tree trunk and then sets it on fire.
That is also S tier.
Yeah, that one was like so over the top. But yeah, we talked about that. And Child's Play was the other example that we had because the first one is rooted in the idea of like, what if like like adults not believing you and like children having that trust issue? Like, what if that was justified?
Yeah.
Like that whole movie, the very first one is about adults needing to learn to trust a child and to like believe what they say. And then the franchise again just got away from them, and eventually you're trying to possess Redman. Was that what it was?
Yeah. Also, hey, we talked about a similar concept on our Nightmare Before Elm Street episode.
Starts off
Nightmare
great.
Before Elm Street. That sounds like a great crossover.
But no,
I'd watch it.
But back to the thing
I
of
think
like
the first Saw, solid movie. Franchise got away from it.
yeah, I don't even mind the second one. Definitely not as good. But then after that, because I've seen I think the third one as well, and then I was like, I'm done. And I think they've made like 6 or 7 at this point.
Yeah, I one time just sat down and read the Wikipedia plot summaries for all of them and was like, yeah, this got complicated.
Yeah, like the first one, I think is a great, solid movie. It's definitely up there. The second one, I don't think is as bad. It's still not as good as the first one. But the first one, I think gets overlooked all the time. But I was like, it is a very solid movie. The twist is amazing that I don't think a lot of people saw for sure.
Mm-hmm.
The score is also amazing. The reveal when it actually like it goes really mellow and then it just
because everything just hits. It's great. Like that whole moment is like actually fantastic. If we're talking about like I guess anywhere.
I have seen every Saw in theaters with the exception of the most recent one that came out.
You mean with the laser collars or whatever?
I haven't watched it, Alex. I tried.
It's in the
on
trailer
Hulu right now, and I was like, "Oh, Jigsaw! I'm a completionist. I can start this." I turned it off. I watch real bad movies all the time. I love Batman and Robin. Turned that movie off.
That is rough. Also, quick story on the side here. When I was in high school, we went to a haunted maze / house thing. And part of it was that you're walking on a trail through the woods and there's like little stages with like horror scenes out in the woods off the trail. And we're walking and one of the scenes is just Jigsaw on a tricycle. That's all it is. Or Billy, I guess, technically. Or is that what it's called?
Yeah.
Yeah. And we see it. We're like, that's dumb. And I was like, also, I don't trust this. So let's keep moving. And we start walking and then we hear someone scream, "It's effing moving." And we look back and it got off the tricycle and it was a kid the whole time. And it is just like beelining for the trail.
No, fuck that. That is how you get your child punted. No,
Right?
That is terrifying.
It was incredible because suddenly we just feel like a surge of people pushing on our backs to make us run. It was a very good moment.
So I do think on that note, this is probably, I just saw this movie this week. It comes out on Shudder on the 24th. I think it's available for VOD right now till it makes that switch to Shudder. Well, it's on Shudder right now when you're listening to this. It's called Haunt.
I've heard of it. I haven't seen it.
Dude. So Haunt hits as one of my top Halloween movies now because it literally embodies every fear you have when you go into a haunted house.
Okay, how does it compare with stuff like The Houses October Built or Hell House LLC?
This is something completely different.
Okay.
Like, it stands completely by itself. So, like, one, it's not found footage.
Okay.
And two, it is a lot gorier. And it is a lot more psychological.
Okay, that sounds interesting.
So I really enjoyed it. So do you guys all know what extreme haunted houses are?
Yep.
Adrian, Matt?
Is it ones where they can touch you?
Worse.
More than that.
No, I mean, I've been to the other ones, but not the ones where they can touch people, because we tried that once and it didn't go over well.
This is where like they can like handcuff you and lock you in a box for 20 minutes and then to get out make you eat bugs.
No.
Yeah. So extreme haunted houses.
Or worse, make you eat worse.
We've been to the regular ones where they're like, "Hey, boo," and they try to touch your shoulder, and then people got knocked out, and we're like, "Oh, we can't go to these anymore."
So I love haunted houses. I used to go to them every year during Halloween from when I was like 13 to when I was like 20. And it was so fun and it was great. Extreme haunted houses I will never ever do. But essentially what people do is they drive to a house and they sign liability waiver and they essentially accept to be made a part of the haunted house, which means that you can get kidnapped and you can get handcuffed and you can get like held in a confined space. But this is a real thing. This is something that happens like everywhere. Haunt takes that idea and says, "Oh, what if the people doing this were actually more than just like surface level sadists and actually wanted to kill you?"
Oh.
And it really drives it home. And one of the best things that Haunt does is, one, it takes place on Halloween night, so everybody's dressed up in costume. And two, I would say for like the first 45 minutes of the film, it is just them having a regular ass Halloween. It is just them walking through a cheesy haunted house with cheesy things. And then all of a sudden, it is not that anymore. And so it hits all those notes as a Halloween movie, like the costuming, the cheesiness, and then all of a sudden it turns into like a straight, like, definitely Eli Roth produced movie. So for me, that's something that like the moment I saw it a couple of days ago catapulted to the top of my Halloween list.
So is that kind of like the American Dad episode where nobody likes his haunted house, so he goes and breaks out all of those actual murderers and puts them in a box, and then Roger lets them out because they had to be terrified, and nobody was terrified of a person in a box?
A little bit, Matt.
I haven't seen that episode.
It's amazing. It's great.
so
You haven't seen it? It's good.
It's good.
It's good. It's all because Stan doesn't have the best haunted house, so he goes overboard with it. It's a good
That
episode.
sounds like a
it's
Stan
great.
thing to do.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He basically goes and takes the most dangerous of criminals and murderers and puts them in his house in a box, and they're like, but nobody's scared because they're in a box. What if we let them out of the box?
I'm gonna go watch this later.
But there are a lot of really good things for like horror fans, but there are also a lot of really good things for Halloween fans, like just people who love Halloween. So I would add this to your watch list, but I do warn you, it's very graphic. So if you don't like gore, don't blame me. I gave you a warning.
That's fair. Yeah, I
So
think
you know
that's
the funniest-
always a good thing to clarify.
Yes. You know, also the funny thing was, Kate had never watched Halloween 3 before she had met me, and I kept telling her it was the worst thing in existence.
I was always told to skip it.
Yeah, I was told her it was the worst thing in existence, and you're going to get the stupid song stuck in your head.
And is that the only Halloween movie you've seen, Matt?
No, I've actually seen 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I think the 201, and... How many are after the 201?
Oh, I don't know. I think there's like 8 or 9 total.
There's one more after the H2O1, because after H2O is when you get Buster Rhymes.
Oh, is that Resurrection?
I don't think... So I've seen... If there's 9 movies, I've seen 7 of them, I believe.
Yeah, and then you have the reboot series, which is...
Right,
whole
yes.
other thing. And then you have the reboot, and then you have the other reboot.
So I've seen, I think, is 5 out of the original, I believe it's 6, correct? And then I've seen now the reboot series, I think there's, 2 or 3?
There's
Two.
two. There's Rob Zombie, and then the one that just came out.
That's the one with Busta Rhymes, the other one, right?
No, Resurrection is a part of the main chronology.
So I've seen the first one with Rob Zombie. I don't know if I've seen the second part on this one, and then I've seen the one with Busta Rhymes, which I think is afterward, but I've not seen the one that came out last year.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah,
Only
you're
one I
pretty
watched
well
was
watched in
that.
that franchise.
Yeah.
It's my cousin's favorite. My cousins and my brothers love Halloween movies and horror movies, so I just basically grew up with basically like, hey, you're like 7, but I'm 12, so we're gonna watch every horror movie there is in existence.
I'm so glad I didn't have terrible cousins like that.
You could have had a grandma that scared you when you were 4.
I also didn't have that.
But no, so I've actually, like, when it comes to like 80s horror movies and stuff, especially like the Halloween, I mean, I've even seen, I think, the first 2 or 3 Chuckies at this point. Obviously Nightmare on Elm Street, I've seen the first one. What else do we do? Friday the 13th, I've seen the first 2 parts of some of the other ones. The Saws, I've seen the first 2. I guess it depends on where else we go with that, because there's a lot of other movies. But actually, I guess because we've been making these lists and doing other stuff all Halloween, I was like, I've actually seen a lot. I guess the main thing is I haven't. It's one of those, like, when you were a kid, you're forced to watch all this shit.
Oh yeah.
And then it's like, now is like, as I've grown older, I'm like, I didn't care for any of this, so I haven't really watched anything in the last 10 years, because I'm like, I don't care to watch any of this. I never wanted to in the first place.
Yeah.
So I will say, like, since then, like, so I watched Halloween 3 the first time. I think it was like 2 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
I've watched it twice now, and that movie is actually on like my top 13 Halloween movies. It doesn't suck. It just doesn't fit with the rest of the franchise.
Yes.
That's the problem, because it doesn't have anything to do with Michael
But
Myers.
it's still good.
That's
like,
what-
it is a solid Halloween movie. Like,
It's
3
what-
more days to Halloween. Like, it's a solid ass
No,
Halloween
it's
movie.
it's
And
what
then, like,
John Carpenter
masks that-
wanted the franchise to be.
Yeah.
I mean, I get it. It just, it doesn't match the other 8 movies. That's
But
the
that doesn't
problem.
make it a bad movie.
But it
Yeah.
does
Halloween
make it a
Resurrection, it does match the rest of it, and it's a bad movie.
That's fine. But it
Yeah.
just doesn't match the rest of the actual Halloween movies.
Jason X matches the. Oh no, that kind of doesn't. But like, it has Jason in it.
This one
Bad
doesn't even
movie.
have Michael Myers in it. I think they just reference him one time.
That's fine. It doesn't matter. It's good. But that wasn't my third choice. Alex, your turn.
Yeah, I'm trying to think, because like there are things that I enjoy, but I know they're not necessarily like good horror choices. I think
Well, it doesn't have to be horror. Like, Monster House isn't horror, but Monster House is one of the best Halloween movies ever.
that's true. Well, because what I was considering recommending was, and I'll just say this and then recommend something else. Specifically, getting a laptop and watching the movie Unfriended on it in the dark,
Why would you do that?
because the whole movie takes place on a laptop screen. So if you watch it full screen on a laptop, it's like you're living it.
It's so
One, the
bad.
problem I have with that movie is like, just close your damn laptop.
It's bad and it's dumb, but I watched it with friends like that once, and we were like, that was actually really entertaining to be like sitting in front of a computer watching all of this
It's
play out.
bad and dumb, but like in the best way.
Absolutely. No,
I mean,
what
I
I will
remember you
recommend,
watching it, and I tried to watch it, and I was just like, just log
You
off.
were
Just-
watching Unfriended. Oh no, that was the first one. I don't remember if that was Dark Web or the first one. But
yeah, the big thing is the blender kill.
Unfriended crawled or walked so that searching could fly. Thank you very much.
I did love searching.
Searching, so good.
No, I what I'll recommend is the Halloween Tree, which I don't know if I've talked about on this podcast before. I've talked about it publicly a lot. The Halloween Tree is an animated adaptation of the Ray Bradbury book, and it is a bunch of kids going through, like, their friend's pumpkin gets how do I put this? Their friend is dying, and so they have to like track down his ghost, and so Mr. Moundshroud, who's voiced by Leonard Nimoy, takes these children on like magic journey through all of these different countries and eras so that they can understand where their Halloween costumes come from and the way that different cultures have interacted with death. So like the first kid is dressed up like a mummy, so he takes them to ancient Egypt and they learn about death practices there, and then they go and like learn about gargoyles and why people built them on churches, and they learn about witches and Samhain, and like they learn about a little bit about Dia de los Muertos just because one of the kids dressed as a skeleton. And And it like I watched it a bunch as a kid, and then I bought it on DVD as an adult once I could finally find it. But it's just like a really fun movie about Halloween, and the animation is excellent. And Ray Bradbury did the voiceover for it, and that was excellent. And again, Leonard Nimoy as the villain. And then just like the whole idea behind it was really fun. And it's like a crash course for children in like cultural appreciation versus appropriation.
That's really cool. And it also makes me think about, have you seen Boys in the Trees?
Yes.
So Boys in the Trees isn't that, but it's close to that.
Yeah, Boys in the Trees was really interesting.
Yeah.
Not quite horror, but like in that vein. But yeah, if you haven't seen it, I think you can rent it online or buy it, and I would say that it's worth it. Like for me, there's that childhood nostalgia because Cartoon Network used to air it constantly. But it's just one of my favorite movies, like probably period.
Adrian, do you have a second?
Batman Forever. Just kidding.
No, to me, can we talk about Batman Forever? I feel like it's a very underrated movie. Like, I feel like it gets overlooked all the time. Obviously, we know it's not as good as the first two, but it's 10 times better than Batman and Robin. And I just don't think it's as bad as what everybody says it is. It's not great, but it's not bad.
It just showed up on like a list I looked up, and I was like, yeah, I can see that. That makes sense.
I think it's a very underrated movie.
It's really good.
But I forgot about, I'm going to go with Halloweentown.
Yeah.
I just bought
Because
that
I
on
watched
DVD
it
this year.
every single year when I was a kid, and I really liked Halloweentown. Looking back, these costumes are terrible.
They're so bad, but
They're
so
so
good.
bad. But come on, man. Debbie Reynolds, come on, give me some of
The
that.
whole vibe
Give
of
me some Debbie
Halloweentown
Reynolds.
is like community theater.
Yes.
Yeah, it's so good. I mean, I don't know if it's still good. I haven't watched it in probably, I don't know, 10 years maybe.
I watched it about like 4 years ago, 4 or 5 years ago ish, and it still was good. Because it's good in what it wants to be. Like it wants to be that kitschy campy, like Halloweentown. Like
the name alone tells you what it's gonna be.
Exactly. Like it's because it knows what it is that it still holds up. The other two, no. The first one,
Yeah. I'm only talking about the first one. I don't recognize any of the other ones.
Halloweentown 2 isn't terrible, but it is not quite as good as the first. Everything after Halloweentown 3, Return to Halloweentown, Halloweentown High, all that can go die in a fire.
The fact that you know those is probably like you might be one of the few people that do.
He also has them on DVD. He's just hiding them in the back.
No, I only have 1 and 2 on DVD. It was a 2-pack at the store, and I needed it.
So since we are talking about campy type stuff, I'm kind of disappointed that we have not talked about Hocus Pocus yet, which I thought was
that
like
can be
one
your
of the best-
recommendation.
As
one thing is like
we're
I get them.
through.
Well, it's not even just rotating. It's just kind of like I don't know if it's one of my favorites, but I'm like that is one movie that I've seen like 10 million times, whether I like to or not, just because of how many times it's been played and how much people love that movie.
I have seen it every year on Halloween or during the Halloween season since I was like, I think maybe, what age are second graders?
7 and 8?
Like 7, 8.
Yeah, since I was that age.
Since you were this many?
Since I was this many.
I mean, I was going to talk about Hocus Pocus if no one talked about it for like my third one, but it's the same thing as like Halloweentown, right? Like I just watched it so much as a kid that like, how do you not have that on your Halloween
It also
thing?
it also just fits as an adult, and it's like so much like it's so much darker and creepier and better as an adult too. Like it's just I just love that movie like with all of my heart, and Thackeray Binks is the best thing, and I love him so much. Like and just like Bette Midler is phenomenal.
Yeah.
Like I love that movie. That version of I Put a Spell on You is on the Halloween playlist as well.
Good.
Because that is one of my favorite scenes. Sarah, the pretty witch, played by what's her face? From
Sarah Jessica Parker?
Sarah Jessica Parker.
Yeah.
Is her name Sarah in the thing?
I don't know.
Yeah, it is. I'm looking at the castles right now.
Right?
And it blows my mind that I never realized that before today.
She is actually really creepy when you're an adult because you realize that she's a full-grown adult going after like 13-year-olds.
Oh yeah, that's
Now
upsetting.
It gets weird.
Now I got to watch this movie again.
But it works. Like, it's such a perfect Halloween movie. Like, I actually, so when I worked at my first job outside of academia, they had a Halloween, like, party where they put, like, on a projector, like, different Halloween movies. They chose freaking Edward Scissorhands, which is more of a Christmas movie than a Halloween movie. And they didn't pick Hocus Pocus, and I was very sad. And then I just came home and watched Hocus Pocus instead.
Yeah, Edward Scissorhands is not Halloween. Like, it's goth aesthetic, but that's it.
Yeah. But since we're just talking about, like, good
It's
Halloween
Freddy
movies,
Krueger without
Casper
the
is another
sweater.
one.
You say
Casper was also going to be one of my other ones because I watched that one I had on VHS and I watched it till it broke.
Nice. I keep thinking to buy the DVD, but I can't remember if I liked that movie as a kid or if I just had a crush on Christina Ricci.
Again with the Christina Ricci crush.
No.
I mean, she played
I
a lot
liked
of
Addams
things.
Family on its own. That was just a bonus. But Casper, I legit can't remember if I actually liked the movie as a kid.
So, I again rewatch that movie all the time, and I still really
Is
like
it good?
I still love it. It falls into the same vein as Halloweentown and like Hocus Pocus. Like, it knows what it is, and the CG isn't actually that distracting.
Interesting.
That one is also hella dark.
I
when you
will
watch it
say,
as an
Casper
adult.
is not a property where I want them to go for realistic CG, where they're just like, so it's a movie about a dead
No.
kid. Like, I don't want that to look real.
I'm not gonna lie,
Yeah.
the Casper like real jokes and stuff are great when you're like realize he's a dead kid and you're like, oh
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Yeah.
My friends and I were playing.
Give me a Zack Snyder-esque origin story of Casper.
Yeah. No,
the
my
car
friends
and
and I were
everything.
playing a trivia game, and one of the questions was, what is Casper the Friendly Ghost's last name? And I knew it without having to, like, even look at anybody, and they were like, of course you know this. Like, this is 100% something that you and you only would know.
What's his last name?
No.
McFadden.
Oh,
Oh, yeah.
huh.
Casper's beautiful. Casper's great. I mean, on that note, like, Monster House is also one of my favorite not horror movies, one of my favorite Halloween movies, and it's something I also love to watch, like, either, again, right on Halloween or the day before. Like, Monster House is also, like, a deep emotional story about what grief does to somebody when they lose the person they love,
Yep.
and they're so old they don't know what else to do, but it's also super cute and has great animation.
Yeah. I mean, and I think that's the thing is that, like, as much as I love horror and scary things, around Halloween time, like, because it's so much more fun and playful, and, like, you get people who are not necessarily in the macabre community engaging with it, like, I get drawn to these, like, other, like, lighthearted, fun things.
Yeah.
Where it's like, yeah, we could watch Michael Myers, stalk and kill people, or we could watch Halloweentown.
Yeah, or Monster Squad.
Yeah. What happens if you kick the
Monster
Wolfman
Squad
in the
is-
Nards?
Great.
Which, since we were talking about fun things, and obviously I took some Googling and it's been a while since I've seen it, but like, I guess something we haven't talked about was Ichabod Crane and the Headless Horseman and all that stuff. Which they
Yeah.
do have that one is pretty good. I believe I think the first one's like Adventures Ichabod, and I think it's Mr. Toad
yeah.
is the old
The
one.
Disney ones?
Yeah.
Something like
But
that.
those are pretty good. I've watched those a lot. Obviously this goes back to like more of my kid stuff. I don't really watch stuff now. I think once I learned I can legally drink alcohol, it's kind of like I don't need to watch TV.
Yeah.
But I can watch my own movie, and then it makes
Kate
sense.
just keeps watching TV.
Yeah. Also, Kate,
But,
I don't know. Oh, sorry, go on.
No, I was gonna say, but that is something like in that whole entire, I guess, lore story is fascinating to me, and I find it interesting. Obviously, excluding whatever show they did on Fox that apparently was good and then sucked.
It was good for 2 seasons, and then they literally killed off the main character.
Which
Yeah,
show?
but didn't it? I think it was Sleepy
got that.
Hollow or something
Sleepy
like that.
Hollow.
Yeah.
Oh,
It
right.
was basically that was a story, but then it didn't go like 4 years though. Like it was good for 2 seasons, but then it just kept going.
Yeah, because they killed her off in the middle of it and tried to keep doing stuff with it. It was awful.
That'll do it.
Guys,
Yeah.
there's a movie on Netflix called Spookly, the Square Pumpkin.
Oh, yeah, I heard about that. I want to see that.
So, like, to be honest, like, I am super dark, and I love, as we've talked about the last 2 episodes between Hellraiser and Nightmare on Elm Street, I love buckets of blood.
Mm-hmm.
But, like, Spookly the Square Pumpkin, though. Like, I also
The
really
name alone
like
is
the cute
excellent, yeah.
spooky things.
Also, I just want you to know that if you haven't seen it, there is a documentary about Monster Squad called Wolfman's Got Nards.
Oh, that's cool.
And it's a guy who I think was like a kid when the first one came out, just doing a documentary about it.
That's really cool.
Whose turn is it?
I have no idea.
I don't know.
Matt brought up Hocus Pocus and it went everywhere.
Well, then I brought up Ichabod Crane and the Headless Horseman, which is a fascinating story.
Yeah.
E.T. Does E.T.
Oh, I know.
count?
Fuck E.T. But
Oh Jesus!
It has
I
a
hate
Halloween scene. Honestly, it's arguably more Halloween than Mean Girls.
I'm sorry, I
Yeah.
hate E.T. E.T. I think it's a terrible movie.
A.T..
You know what? A.T. is better than an At's better than E.T. I hate E.T. I think it's a terrible movie. Also, from what I've seen from the study, it's just one of the weird movies when you go with the critic versus audience ratings, especially for how renowned it is. It actually has one of the biggest differences.
Interesting. Yeah, movies like that are always kind of a weird curiosity where like audiences love it and critics hate it or vice versa.
Yeah, because I think that one's one of the ones that's the largest. Because obviously you get a bunch where critics hate it, audience like it, et cetera, et cetera. But this was actually one of the ones, at least from the data set I've been looked at before. I don't know, probably been a few years, but where it's actually it had the largest gap for movies that actually had won awards, in which critics loved it versus how much the audience did not like this movie.
Yeah.
So
That's weird.
I've watched it multiple times. I don't understand it. I don't like it. I don't know why people liked it.
Because Spielberg.
Yep. Spielberg
also
and music.
But he also made AI, and that was awful.
Well,
Yeah,
but
the
that was
movie
also a
just
Kubrick
so
script, wasn't it?
long. It was a Kubrick script.
But also that
Which-
was awful.
It was just too long.
It was
I know.
so
I
long.
haven't watched it pretty much since it came out, but I'm kind of curious to go back because what I vaguely remember of it is that it's sort of a fairy tale / parable / fable in general, and I wonder if the idea of that and sci-fi joining together just didn't really make that much sense at that time. But
Yeah.
maybe it still sucks. I don't know.
I don't know. I know it was awful. It was super long. Obviously, depending on how you look at it, it's probably also very depressing. But
Yeah.
but yeah, I know it was super long.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Another recent horror movie to this one's all ages though. To the list is Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark. I personally feel like that movie is going to become the new Halloween movie once it's on VOD in places. The entire thing is all these 4 kids in costumes show up to a haunted house and decide to steal the woman's book, who they know is legend to say stories that kill people. And then they read those stories and they end up dying. And the stories themselves are essentially retellings of the short stories in the Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark franchise, the series of books. And this one it's half centered on the Halloween holiday, but the rest of it is all after. And it's just really good, and it's full of really, really good scares. So I love it.
Nice.
And it's full of that Halloween spirit.
One that I'll mention while we're still in this vein of family friendly things, but it's gonna be an honorable mention before I do something that's more horror, is specifically the Boy Meets World episode, and then there was Sean. Which I don't know if you guys remember Boy Meets World doing a horror episode, but they did a horror episode.
I don't remember that.
It's so it's set in the high school and they're all in detention, and then it's somebody kills Mr. Feeney, and then they're they kill Kenny, who's another student who is in there with them. And then
I remember this episode.
Yeah, and so the whole thing is actually granted, it moves really fast. They have 20 minutes, but and there's jump scares in it and it's dumb, but it's oh yeah, that was one of the first things that I watched as a kid where I was that was kind of freaky. That was when you're a kid, it's a bit much. But yeah, it's just everybody getting picked off one by one in the school. And also the song that's what are the lyrics? It's it's a 1930s upbeat song that's welcome to John Adams High. This is where you're gonna die. Death is on the menu tonight. And it's just this is a bad song, but I love it so much.
And do y'all have any special Halloween episodes of things that y'all really like?
I said mine, American Dad.
Yeah, there we go.
The
American
episode
Dad
of
one's really
The
good.
Office
American
where
Dad
they
one
all
is
come as the
amazing.
Joker.
Oh yeah.
Which one? Sorry.
Where they all come as the Joker on The Office.
Oh yeah, that's great.
Or the first Office Halloween episode where Michael fires Devin. And so, like, the guy's dressed up as a hobo clown and gets fired.
Oh yeah, that's right. Also, Dwight for Joker.
Yes, that was very good.
So my actually Buffy the Vampire Slayer did the best Halloween movies in existence.
Wait, the movie?
No, the episodes. Sorry.
Oh, okay.
They did
Because
the
I was like,
best-
I've seen the
sorry.
movie. The movie's a lot.
Yeah, the movie is a lot. It's super camp, but no. So what I meant to say was Buffy the Vampire Slayer does some of the best Halloween TV episodes in existence.
Okay.
The most iconic of which is when they all go to buy costumes from this new pop-up shop. Kind of, I guess, spirits, but like a boutique, and they all find really, really cool costumes. But what happens is they end up turning into their costumes. But what it just so happens that the people who are turning into their costumes, they are essentially embodying like the opposites of who they are, or
Okay.
embodying their fears. So Buffy is dressed up like this, like 17th century, like giant gown, and she's like damsel in distress, and oh my god, oh no. And then you have Xander, who's dressed up like a commando, and he is like the least apt to deal with anything on their team, but he's like going full Rambo on everything. And then you
I do
have
love
Willow,
that.
who's it's so good. And then like you have Willow, who is dressed up like a ghost, and she is so scared of being faded into the background that she slowly starts to fade into the background, like to fade away and turn into a ghost.
Okay.
It's really good. And then one of the other really good ones too is where they end up handing out the adults end up handing out candy, but the candy makes people childlike, and so it reverts all of the adults into like the teenage versions of themselves.
Love it.
And it's really good. And the cool thing is that in Buffy the Vampire Slayer as a series, the ramifications of those Halloween nights actually come, like they come into play in other moments. Like when Xander stops being the commando, like that is always something he always thinks back to. Like, oh, I did all that stuff when I was in the costume. Why can't I do that now? Because Xander is like this big exploration, and like, how do you actually, like, what is cowardly, what is brave, and like, is friendship sometimes friendship and support better than actually like going in guns a-blazing? And so like they do those really cool things, and they have like a haunted house episode where everything comes alive, and
Yeah.
those are some of like the best Halloween like TV things.
Oh, for sure. I also want to throw in the Community episode Epidemiology, which is the one where they
Yeah,
eat
I was gonna say that one.
the like rotten military grade meat, and then they all turn into zombies.
Yeah, that's a solid one. That's the one I was gonna say next for sure.
Like
So good.
Yeah, like Troy's whole like I'm dressed up, like where he's just like I'm a sexy Dracula. I don't need to know which one.
I was looking up a list, Kate. Oh no, go for it.
Oh no, just like there. What? Because what else is there? There's like Ken Jeong dressed up as a figure skater, and then getting mad when anybody says that he's Michelle Kwan, and he's like, "No, I'm Peggy Fleming."
Yeah.
Yeah. Like Shirley's Glinda the Good Witch costume, and just everything about that episode is so good.
Joel McHale is just a soccer player in a suit.
He's just wearing a suit and holding a soccer ball because he's the worst.
Oh, that's such a good episode, though. That's almost as good as the pinball episode.
So I was Googling just like best TV episodes to see one miss. Obviously, Parks and Recs apparently had some good ones that I remembered.
Oh, there
But
were
what
some good ones
The
there.
fart attack!
Yes.
Sorry, that's
But
the
one
best
I-
one,
but the
Jerry's
one
fart
show-
attack.
But the one I saw that I completely forgot about was Always Sunny in Philadelphia. Who got D pregnant?
Yes, that was the next one I was gonna say.
And
That one
I've
is
seen
so
it,
good.
Great.
That's one of the best episodes of Always Sunny, for sure. Like without a doubt.
I completely forgot that was like a Halloween episode because like, oh, I've definitely seen this one.
Yeah.
So why don't you explain for the class?
What?
They basically dress up as costumes, and they think that uh, who they go like D gets laid, and they're like, oh, who got D pregnant? And they're like trying to remember back to the Halloween party, and there's like costume switching, so no one really knows who the dad is of D. At one point, they think it's her brother. It's a real weird episode.
It's funny. So basically, everybody's blacked out drunk, and they're trying to retrace their steps from a Halloween party to figure out who actually had sex with D.
Yeah, picture if you know anything about Always Sunny in Philadelphia, it's the Halloween episode of Always Sunny in Philadelphia. So like that kind of tells you everything you need to know about the craziness.
Yeah,
of the episode.
honestly.
I was looking up some lists too, Kate, and I saw it said, I know you watched that Los Spookies show,
Yeah.
and that was on a couple of the lists of like more recent lists. Is that a good one?
Yeah, so the Los Spookies, like, it's more of just like a spooky show. Like, it's literally, if
okay.
you were a goth Latino kid, like, that's, like, that show is your jam. All they do is just, like, make monsters and do creepy things, but it's not, like, scary. It's like, more comedy, but, like, there's a whole bunch of goth kids making monsters, essentially. But I love that show. I wouldn't say that it's particularly Halloween, but if you're just looking for something spooky, yes.
Well, they have one. What episode they have? They have the Alien Lab episode is what they had on here as like.
Yeah.
Apparently, BoJack Horseman, Mr. Peanut Butter's Booze was a Halloween episode.
Yep.
Way back.
Aww.
Like a lot of these I've seen and remember, I just haven't like said some of these are like from like season 2 of BoJack or something. I'm like, or even like said season 3 of like at that point Dee's pregnant, like season 4 of Always Sunny, and at this point that's almost a decade ago, and I'm like, oh my gosh, that's so long ago. I was like, I remember seeing a lot of these, it's just not off the top of my head.
Yeah.
And whatnot. So apparently there are a lot of recent lists, and obviously it is pretty easy to find a lot of episodes. So
Does anybody have any other favorites?
I'm just trying to look through lists so I can remember. It's also hard, like when you have, when you're judging it against basically, Treehouse of Horrors. I think it's hard to find what's a better Halloween episode than those first few years of that when it comes to Halloween episodes for me.
That's fair.
Because I mean, like almost every animated thing we ever watched growing up had some Halloween episode, but none of them stick out like The Simpsons. Well, and except for the American Dad one, because I watched that episode.
I love that episode. That episode.
There's also, I think, something too, like you're judging: is this a good episode of a show, and also is this a good episode of the specific show that it is?
Exactly.
Like, because there are episodes where I'm like, oh, that was like a fun Halloween episode, but a terrible episode of this show. And so it's kind of hard to judge that.
Oh, like the Glee Rocky Horror Picture Show episode.
Man.
Really good Halloween episode. Really good episode because it's Rocky Horror Picture Show. Really bad episode of Glee.
Oh, I was going to say really bad adaptation. Oh, no, I'm thinking of the Fox Rocky Horror Live. I did not care for.
We don't talk about that. We don't talk about that. Nope.
I was so deeply disappointed. But hey, that can be the next thing that we talk about is Rocky Horror Picture Show. Like, there's a Portland theater that does midnight showings that I have still yet to make it to, and I deeply regret not going yet. But like Rocky Horror Picture Show as a musical is just such a fun, weird thing. And if you can go to a theater and see it live, also a very fun, weird thing. The first time that I watched it... Oh, go for it.
No, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, the first time I watched it was I was just at a friend's house in high school, and we were looking for something to watch in, the pre-Netflix days, digging through this my friend's family's DVDs, and somebody found Rocky Horror Picture Show, and we had all heard of it, and we'd all like seen the poster and like stills from it, but none of us had watched it. So we all just sat down and watched it, not knowing what we were going to get ourselves into, and it was like the first time I watched it, I don't want to say like off-putting, I just didn't enjoy it. I was like, that was weird, I don't get it. And then every subsequent viewing, I've just enjoyed it more and more.
Yeah, that was, so I love Rocky Horror Picture Show. I also think it's something that's really good to watch around Halloween, mainly just because it is, like, there is, like, a costume element, but then it's also, like, the time warp is something that gets played at Halloween all the time. It's kind of spooky, but my favorite experience in a theater ever was my very first Rocky Horror Picture Show midnight showing. So if you haven't been to one, essentially as you're walking into the theater, they ask you if it's your first time, and if it is, they take red lipstick and they put a giant V on like either your chest or your face or somewhere to mark that you're a virgin. And then that way, anytime, this is at the Draft House, anytime they're coming to serve you, or they have special pieces of the show where it says all the virgins do this or something like that. And it's like a really good way to like interact with the crowd and get like brought into the community of people who love this. And I did it 3 years in a row during undergrad, and it was probably like the only fun thing I did during undergrad, really. And it was just great, and it's an amazing communal experience, and like it's so rowdy, like everybody is loud, and it's if you haven't done it and that's your thing, like you need to find one near you, at least before Disney cancels it as the longest running.
Right, they can't. I feel like Disney
show.
won't let that record go. But also, I will say, like as you can tell from the way that Kate talked about that, it is a very interactive thing, and so maybe like I would say most of the showings, to my understanding, are pretty friendly, especially to people who have never done it before, never seen it.
They're extremely friendly.
But there are like just read up on what your local theater does so that you know what you're getting yourself into.
Oh yeah.
Because I've also heard of some theaters that like are really bad about like if someone says no, I don't really want to participate as a virgin, like they're not good about respecting that.
No, they're not. Yeah.
And so, but then there are other theaters that are really great, and they're like, no, that's totally fine. Like, stay seated. You don't have to come up for this. Like, but yeah, it's
they took us up front and cream pried us.
That's super funny.
And there was like maybe like 6 of us in a full theater. So that was cool.
Yeah, and that too is like I think it's probably very rare that you would be the only virgin at a showing.
Yeah.
And again, it's the longest running longest running theater run for any film ever. It has not been out of theaters since it premiered in 1974, I think. So if you want to be a part of history, go see it.
Awesome. Well, any final thoughts? I think that is a very like good recommendation list because today is October 30th and tomorrow is Halloween.
That's a good question. I think if I were going to throw out just some like harder, more like actual horror recommendations, I would say like there's the classics like Halloween and Scream, Blair Witch Project. More recent classic, It Follows. Just like find something that is in your comfort zone and the comfort zone of your friends, because I believe in respecting that. And just like have a good Halloween night. Like watch some fun movies, whether they're for kids and families or just adults watching, actual horror. Find something that you're into and that your friends are going to be into and enjoy it.
So just last minute additions, I would recommend Ginger Snaps, which is my favorite werewolf movie outside of the original werewolf or Wolfman movie. It's really good. I would also recommend, this is on Hulu, or Ginger Snaps is actually available to watch on YouTube in full free.
Oh, cool.
Into the Dark, I would watch on Hulu, Into the Dark series, which Hulu made with Blumhouse, Uncanny Annie, which just came out this month. It's essentially on Halloween night, a whole bunch of college kids are together and they decide to play a board game, and that board game goes bad.
Nice.
And it's really fun, especially if you're somebody who has friends and does those like board game type things. But
yeah,
I would add those two to the list of things you should watch.
And actually, on that, 2 more things that I'm sure Kate will co-sign at least one of these. Any of the old original Universal Monster movies, worth enjoying. I think right now, last I saw, Target has like the 8 classics for like $20, so go pick that up. And then also the board game Betrayal at House on the Hill, which is it's like a $50 board game. It's one of those ones, but you are like exploring a house and finding all the different rooms in it, and then eventually somebody will trigger the event, so to speak, and then based on what room it was triggered in and what triggered it, that plays out the scenario for the rest of the game, and like all of the rules change, and it usually becomes one player versus everybody else. And it's really just cool. It's really fun, and it's if you like haunted house stuff, it's worth playing.
Yeah, it's like D&D-esque. It's like strategic playing, but it's also like if you get the wrong thing, it's a very long game.
Yeah. There was one where we it was over fast, but I felt bad because the way that it worked was I was the one who was the betrayer and became the villain, and my first thing as that character was to destroy 3 rooms. And they had 3 rooms that could be like a portal to like open an exit. And I destroyed one of those rooms. One of them wasn't on the board yet, and the other one was on the other end of the house from where any of them were. And so they were like, cool, we like literally can't, because then my turn was like every turn was destroying more rooms and collapsing the house, and like they could not run fast enough to get out.
That's really cool.
Yeah, it's a really great game and really weird. But yeah, that's I think all I have.
I have 4 things. One, I Googled basically list of Halloween TV specials, and basically any show you probably ever watched and any show you haven't watched has had a Halloween special at one time or not.
Sounds
So
right.
those exist. A lot of them have multiple ones. 2, obviously, if you want to go old, I guess kind of old at this point, even though they kind of revamped. But Goosebumps and all the stuff they did were pretty good
Oh,
at
yeah.
one time.
Yeah.
I know
The
we
Night
didn't.
of the Mask is a really good one.
Yes.
You mean the Haunted Mask?
Yeah.
Yeah,
But,
that was like as a concept, that one scared me as a kid.
Yeah, there's a few of them that are definitely up there. 3, speaking of shows, Superstore with Sal's Dead, which is great, from 2 years ago, where one of the employees
Yes!
dies and he gets stuck in the wall, and then they're trying to get him out, and he's
no.
like half of his dead body's just like hanging out in the store, and everybody thinks it's part of a decoration, but it's actually a dead body. It's great. And 4, obviously, I still will say, looking at some of these lists and talking about everything, Best Little House Horror in Langley, American Dad is still probably my best episode.
Is that what it's called?
And I
Because
kinda-
I'm going to watch that later.
Yes.
Yeah. I put it in the chat so you can.
Called
you can
Best
go
Little
find it.
Horror
Thank you.
House
It's on
in
Hulu.
Langley Falls.
I will
I'm
absolutely
probably
watch
gonna go
it.
watch it. It is great. But yes, that is all I have.
I have 2, kind of newer, but when I think about it, I'm like, man, that movie is pretty good. I'd watch that one on Halloween once. You know, I have kids who are like who want to watch movies on Halloween. Hotel Transylvania is a really good Halloween movie.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I really like that one.
Is
It's
it a
super
Halloween
cute.
movie or is it just a monster movie?
It's just
I
a
mean,
monster movie, but it's for
but-
Halloween. It's spookies.
Well, and they also like have like the Halloween thing where they all dress up and they have to like dress them up in the party, and it's kind of like Halloween.
I
That's
guess I remember
Halloween.
the last one I watched was on the cruise. I think that was the latest one.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
one.
the
Those
third
are
one is really
movies.
different. The very first one is more Halloween than not.
Okay.
Yeah.
been a while since
And
I've
then my last one is obviously Coco. Just kidding, Kate. It was a joke.
I was
Just
waiting
kidding.
for her to
It's
tear
not,
into
it's
you.
not a Halloween movie.
You saw
It's
the
not a
tweets,
Halloween
right?
movie. It's not because I've been looking at lists for like the last hour, and so many of them have Coco on it. And
Oh yeah, no, I've seen those. I've seen people publish them this fucking year.
Yeah, you guys
wow.
saw the tweets,
Sorry.
right? That guy who
No.
tweeted like settle a debate for me, is Coco a Halloween movie? And then the
Oh,
director
yeah, yeah,
retweeted it and was like, no.
But one, I guess I did better or worse Googling of I didn't actually see that on any list, so I feel good.
It's like on like some Rotten Tomatoes and so like some IMDb list, meaning like it's people who just made lists and put it on their list, not like Ranker. Or
I
anything
don't
like
get
that.
how people lump that in as a Halloween movie when it literally takes place centered around a different holiday.
Yeah.
Because they're stupid white people.
You're not
We're
wrong.
okay, hold on. They're
Sorry, I
stupid
do
non-Mexican
I
people.
do understand
Saying
it.
Stupid non-Mexican people, because as earlier this month showed me, another Latina can still be on her bullshit with it. So yeah, it's because they're stupid non-Mexican.
You're right.
But is it a Christmas movie because you have a 22-minute on Olaf?
No,
Ooh,
no.
yeah, it's a Christmas movie. Yeah, you're right.
What a
Wow.
dumb thing Disney did.
That was awful. It was 22 minutes long. I could have watched an episode of The Office.
We could have watched Best Little Horror House in Langley Falls.
We
in
could
that
have.
time.
I want to know how that's the definition of a short and who thought that was a good idea. And I hope that person's fired.
It was just such
Someone
a
who
mistake.
probably thinks that Coco's a Halloween movie, probably.
But is it a Christmas movie? Because that's all I got out of that.
Maybe they didn't realize that it's not about like hot cocoa and that it's a person's name. Maybe they just heard that there was a movie called Coco and they were like, "Oh, so Frozen goes before it."
Yeah, of course.
Oh, that was so.
All right, that's all I got though.
That's all
Kids
I
out
got.
here, Kate.
Good.
Cool. Alex, why don't you tell everybody where they can find you?
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at MostAlwaysAlex. You can find me at Friday.com doing genre and horror news and reviews. And I am on Game Boys Podcast, which is a co-op and multiplayer gaming podcast. And we are also focusing on spooky stuff this month. We just, last week, put out an episode where we just talked about horror, like as a genre, not even games.
That's cool.
It was a lot of fun. We got very pretentious about it.
I feel like I do that, so that's fine. As always, you can find the podcast at PC. And if you want to help support us a little bit more, head on over to patreon.com/butwhythopc. And you can find me at OMF Adrian?
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at Superruiz93, SUPERRUIZ 93.
Matt?
Oh, I can go now? One, I'm going to go watch the American Dad episode and then beat every snowman I ever see with a stick.